welcome to the first episode of Crime in DC. This is Tess Mendelson, your host, and I have a very special guest on today's show. But first, let's begin with some background. The District of Columbia, the home to the United States Capitol, has been facing issues with crime for many years. According to World Population Review, Washington, D.C. has the highest crime rate in the United States. Over the past couple of weeks, the District of Columbia's proposed bill to reduce penalties for certain felonies and eliminate mandatory minimum sentencing guidelines has been at the center of a tense political divide between D.C. Council members, President Biden, and Senate Democrats. Today, I am here with D.C.'s Attorney General Brian Schwab to learn more about the issue and his stance. And later on, we will hear from a Montgomery County police officer to gain more insight. Brian, can you tell me a little bit about the current state of crime in the district?
Interestingly, while many people have talked about there being an increase in crime overall in the District of Columbia, the fact is that if you look at the historical data, crime today is at historical lows, going back many, many years. What has happened recently, particularly in the last couple of years of the pandemic, is there's been an increase in a certain type of crime, and that's in carjacking and in some homicides.
In 2022, D.C. averaged over one carjacking a day, with a total of 485 carjackings in the year. Brian, how do you think law enforcement can help to reduce these carjackings?
I think we have to work very closely with our counterparts in Maryland and Virginia, because a lot of times when a crime like a carjacking occurs, it can start in Maryland or Virginia and end up in the District of Columbia, or sometimes it starts in DC and goes across jurisdictional lines. So working with counterparts in Maryland and Virginia, working with our federal law enforcement partners, we all together have to work to try to solve the crimes, but also try to stop the crimes before they happen.
I spoke with Neil Bumgarner, a Montgomery County police officer, who stated why this possible solution is easier said than done.
It's a very difficult thing to accomplish only because of jurisdictional boundaries. So when we look at, you think about Chevy Chase, Potomac, Silver Spring are right there on that DC line. And the thieves and whatever crime it is that they're looking to commit, and we're kind of focusing on carjacking and auto theft just because that's been the big uptick recently, but they know those borders as well. So they know if they commit a crime in Silver Spring, let's say, it takes them 30 seconds to jump right back over to DC.
Clearly, crime is a huge issue in the district, so it was very shocking to many to see the proposed crime bill struck down by Congress. Brian, I'm curious about what you thought of this law.
So the law I thought was a good law. There was plenty to, people can negotiate over a law, and there could be things that people disagree with. But by and large, 95% of this law was totally non-controversial.
So, do you believe that there were other political motives involved in the rejection of this law?
I think that the United States Congress should not have got involved in disapproving that law. I think that it was an example of our Congress using the District of Columbia as a political football in a debate that's going on the national level, but really wasn't focused on making sure DC is as safe and has the best criminal laws that it can.
Brian has publicly stated on multiple occasions that he is pro-DC statehood. In his interview with me, he said that this scenario just further proves why DC should be a state. As a student in DC, I often fear that I could be a victim of crime. I asked Brian what he would say to others living in the district who are fearful.
I share that fear. I think everybody across the District of Columbia deserves to feel safe. To feel safe when they're walking their dogs or pumping gas in their car, going to the store. Nobody wants to or should be the victim of a crime. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us to try to think about how do we make ourselves safer as a community.
Brian, Neil, thank you so much for joining me on this first episode of Crime in DC. I'm Tess Mendelson. Stay safe.